The story I like to tell is I went to a conference last year where the head of the conference knew me and was a fan, and she said she really wanted me to help them make the conference an experience of connection. And since I knew that, when I got up on the first day of the conference and went into the resort restaurant where they had set up for us, I immediately asked them to tear apart all the tables of 12 they had put together and made them into four tops. And then I told them to turn off the music that was bouncing all around the restaurant. And then I had them turn off the water fountain that they had running because the entire restaurant was tile. And so the water fountain sound was bouncing all over the tile. And you can imagine exactly how many conferences said, separate our tables into four, turn off that beautiful fountain, and turn off that music. And I only had confidence doing that because Deborah, the director, told me she wanted my help and I was giving her help. Well, when we went to the first session after breakfast, extemporaneously, the attendees were talking about how deep and meaningful the breakfast conversations were. And maybe that would have happened with music playing at giant tables and whatnot. But I was aware that we had gone out of our way to make sure there was the possibility of an intimate conversation, not distracted by 10 other people, and that they could hear each other. And unfortunately, you have to be brave to push against the automatic actions of the restaurant or the hotel or the bar or the caterers, knowing that something better could create a richer conversation.
So, but with that being said, was it the environment design of that, or was it the actual conversation design of it ignorable? That's why it's not like the price isn't a big issue. The room is not fancy. People aren't well dressed. But what I pay more attention to is the social rules. Like, how do I make sure that the conversation itself, through honestly like a couple very, very basic techniques that you and I look as obvious, but most people don't know. We can obviously go into that, make a big difference.
So, Zvi, because you focused that, I'm certain that you are competent in that and you're generating conversations that are not common for your guests because they're not around people as competent as you are. Consider that, when my wife gets a bad diagnosis and the next 6 months of our lives are going to radically change, and that's really on my heart, that for me to say that to my friend Zvi, and we're friends, but we're not really close, and we don't usually talk about medical disasters in our family. The room in which I'll say, at 3 p.m. today, I learned, is probably going to be a quieter room, and it's probably not going to have 8 other people at the table when I want to share that with you. So if you want a venue where I might say at 5 p.m. what I learned at 3 p.m. in an oncologist's office, then you'd want to have a quieter room and maybe no more than 5 of us at the table. And that's not to say that every event should be like that, but just notice it makes a difference. And if you don't provide that, then you're probably not going to get the conversation. Hey, 2 hours, we're in the oncologist's office, and the next 6 months are going to be really different for us.
To that point, you brought up this came to me is that there are different levels of intimacy. Obviously, like on the highest level or on the most surface level, it is like the small talk, like, oh, there's a sports game on TV, or oh, this is what I do for work. And on the deepest level, and I know there are different environments for that. Do you look for when you're hosting a dinner or hosting any kind of event? Is there a certain bare level or measure of intimacy that you look for?
Events that I host, I want to create a venue where someone that I understand culturally, socioeconomically, because there's a lot of diversity in what people expect. They're influenced by a number of factors, not the least of which is culture. I want to create a space intimate and safe enough that they'll share things that they want to share that they haven't had venue to share that before. A longing, a success, a concern, and again, only what they want to share. And that's not to say that every event needs to be able to go deep into someone's most secretly kept longings. But if I only provide a venue where only small talk can happen, then guess what'll happen? If I'm literally competing with beer commercials, I'm not going to open up any conversations that I don't want to compete with beer commercials in that space. And then in my work, I refer to the Brooks lines of communication, which is this graph that just shows how many lines are connecting everybody in a group. And as soon as we go from 5 people in a group to 6, the number of lines of communication goes up 50%. With one more person, it goes up 50%. And all of those lines have to be managed. So that's why if I maybe only know you, Zvi, but you invite 3 other friends that you know in the DC area and you wanted me to meet them, I can still manage that and might share, hey, my family had some bad news today that I'm still processing. But as soon as I'm at a table of 8, I'm less likely to do that because there's more to manage.